Flynn.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. I rise to speak on the Help to Buy Bill 2023. Housing is no doubt one of the most significant issues even in my electorate of Flynn and throughout Australia. Many communities have vacancy rates of less than 1%, leaving families filled with stress and anxiety about keeping a roof over their head. In the midst of the housing crisis, the underwhelming Help to Buy bill is too little, too late. Help to Buy relies on the involvement of states and territories, with states requiring to pass their own legislation to participate in the scheme. Labor went to the election promising to put in place a shared equity scheme. However, they have failed to explain that that scheme needs state government approval to operate. This means that Labor has yet made another promise that it necessarily can't meet. Not that the states will withhold their approval, because after all the Albanese government is offering to pick up the cost by funding a shared equity scheme, when the majority of states already offer a shared equity products. Help to Buy is a small niche program with only about 10,000 households each financial year and will cost the Commonwealth $5.5 billion. What we know already is how underwhelmingly shared equity schemes are. These schemes are so unwanted by Australians that there are places remaining in each of the available state-based schemes already. The Labor government has failed to do the hard work, and we once again left with more questions than answers. What is the scheme's eligibility criteria? What happens if you make improvements to your home? Will you have to send the government an invoice for repairs and maintenance, such as a leaky roof? What happens if you earn a cent above $90,000 for an individual or $120,000 for a couple? Will the government force the sale of your home? Will the ATO be auditing incomes to ensure they don't earn a cent over the threshold? If you enter into one of these shared equity arrangements, what are your reporting obligations? What happens if the housing prices fall and you are behind on your mortgage payments? Will the government force you to sell your house for less than you paid for it? What are the property price caps? How many of the 40,000 places will be available in each state and territory? What lenders are participating in the scheme? What does the affordable house even mean, and what defines affordable housing? Deputy Speaker, Help to Buy can equal force to sell. What we do know is that every time a participant sells their home, they face up to a 40% housing tax as the government swoops in to take its share. A similar scheme in the UK was found to inflate the price of houses more than its subsidy value in areas where it was needed most. Deputy Speaker, the Labor government can claim to be supportive of building more homes, but their policies say otherwise. Chris Bowen has announced in Gladstone in 2023 that 215 of Australia's largest carbon emitters would be required to cut their emissions by 4.9% each year till 2030 to help reach its climate emissions targets. As this safeguard mechanism, or carbon tax, begins to take its toll, impacted businesses will be forced to pass on their costs to consumers, adding fuel to the flame of Labor's cost of living crisis. This will see the cost of everything from food to housing skyrocket when families can least afford it. 215 of the largest industrial facilities affected by the safeguard mechanism, 28 are operating in the electorate of Capricornia and 18 in the electorate of Flynn. So around 30% of these targeted facilities are in central Queensland. One of the targeted facilities in my electorate is the Cement Australia facility at Fisherman's Landing, the largest cement kiln in Australia. And if Labor is going to impose these taxes onto these critical industries, of course they are going to have to pass on their costs to consumers. So concrete will become more expensive, and therefore houses will become more expensive. We are seeing new home builds become more expensive amid the cost of energy-intensive resources such as cement, glass and aluminium all increasing. Since Labor's safeguard mechanism was announced, I've called it an attack on heavy industry and the thousands of workers that work in the sector, and it has proved to be exactly that. It has also been proven to be an attack on housing. Aussie manufacturers rely on cheap energy to make things onshore, but Labor's continued demonisation of gas and coal and broken promises to bring down power prices and the implementation of things like the safeguard mechanism will force more Australian manufacturing offshore. This means less jobs for Australians, less jobs for my local community, and we are seeing exactly that. It will also mean less products to build houses with. In an article by the ABC Wide Bay, they interviewed a lady named Jessie Zilke, and she's a builder in the Bundaberg region. And Jessie said, and I quote, "We've still got some products that we're struggling to get, and we need them, and it's particularly concrete. These products that do require a lot of energy also take up a lot of room on a truck. The fuel required to get the bricks and the concrete to site is definitely still rising in price." Ms Zilke also raised challenges of sourcing labour, which remain difficult. Deputy Speaker, there is a high record of immigration, confirmed by the ABS under Labor's Big Australia policy. Record overseas immigration added 518,000 people to Australia's population in the 2022-2023 financial year, according to the ABS statistics. ABS Head of Migration Statistics, Jenny Duback, said overseas migration was at a record high. This is 8,000 more people than Labor's forecast on Monday, in an increase of $2,000 a day in just 4 days, and 118,000 more people than the government forecast in the May budget. People will be asking Labor, where will all these people live? Migrant arrivals increased 73% to 737,000 from 427,000 arrivals a year ago, and international students accounted for 283,000 arrivals, an increase of 100%. Labor say they don't want a big Australia, but under the Albanese government, 900,000 people will arrive over 2 years and 1.625 million people will arrive over 5 years. Labor will not commit to reducing their record immigration levels as Australians endure the cost of living pressures and the housing shortages and rent hikes. Experts continue to make the leap between Labor's Big Australia and the high housing crisis. For an example, the high price of immigration, or the high pace of immigration, is not compatible with the level of housing supply that we have in this country. We're just not building enough homes to keep up with our population growth. And this is from AMP Deputy Chief Economist Diana Musa. Slowing immigration would help vulnerable Australians whose rent is rising today. Brendan Coates and Trent Wilshire from the Grattan Institute's immigration policy work said. The most sensible solution is short-term reduction in migration to relieve some pressure on the economy, to give homeowners and renters a break and to buy some time to allow our housing infrastructure to catch up with the demands. This was Quinellis Group Managing Director Andrew Swartz. Further to that, Mr Speaker, that it is an enormous adjustment for the economy to bring in 500 to 600,000 people. If they're family groups, we're talking about another 200,000 homes. No wonder we've got rental shortages in Australia. And this was from former Treasurer Peter Costello. Immigration is a really big driver of the housing demand, and from our perspective, one of the largest providers of home loans in the market is a material driver. From ANZ Chief Executive Shane Elliott. Strong population growth has added to the demand for rental properties, particularly in major cities, Reserve Bank of Australia said. The government is doing the opposite. It is doing its bit to increase inflation and make life tougher for borrowers in two ways, through the cost of living relief subsidies and, most of all, through immigration. And this from financial advisor journalist Alan Kohler. The problem for the Albanese government is that it cannot deny that the blowout in net immigration is under its watch. And this is from former Deputy Secretary of the Department of Immigration. The rapid recovery in immigration is adding to the pressures in the housing market, from Treasury Secretary Stephen Kennedy. Current immigration levels are running in well excess of the ability of the housing industry to supply enough homes, exacerbating the acute housing shortage and poor housing affordability, from AMP Chief Economist Shane Oliver. Deputy Speaker, we need to be thinking about policies that support the Australian dream of home ownership. Since the 1st of January 2020, the home guarantee schemes, consisting of the First Home Loan Deposit Scheme, the New Home Guarantee and the Family Home Guarantee, have assisted almost 60,000 first home buyers and single-parent families get into a home of their own with a deposit as little as 5% or 2% respectively. A 2019 election commitment that has been delivered. 52% of the 60,000 guarantees issued have been taken up by women, well above the market average of 41% of women entering home ownership. 1 in 5 guarantees issued went to essential workers. Almost 35% were nurses and 34% were teachers. 85% of family home guarantees were used by single-parent mothers. Addressing the deposit hurdle is the most challenging aspect on the property ladder, which is why first home buyers can accelerate their deposit savings through super with an increased released amount of up to $50,000 from $30,000. This means the average couple would be $20,838 better off under the Coalition's First Home Super Saver scheme than if they saved in a standard savings account. As of March 2022, around 26,800 first home buyers have released $370 million to purchase their first home, and 21,000 of these first home buyers purchased a home after the 2019 election, following Labor's commitment to abolish the scheme. More than 137,000 Australian families applied for the new home builder grant of up to $25,000 if they built a new or substantially renovated a home during the COVID pandemic. Home Builder delivered a secure pipeline of construction work that kept hundreds of thousands of tradies and small businesses in work who would have otherwise been facing an unemployment queue. Home Builder broke every record, from the number of dwelling approvals to the number of commencements delivered, $120 billion of economic activity during our most challenging time. Deputy Speaker, the housing crisis is an issue that needs cooperation from all 3 levels of government, local, state and federal. States and councils need to introduce policies that unlock land for development and make the development of new housing stock less expensive. All too often we have seen local governments lock up land and prevent housing developments while imposing a list of demand on property developers and ultimately treating them like cash cows. Deputy Speaker, the Coalition brought a comprehensive housing policy to the 2022 election, and if re-elected, the Coalition would have established the Super Home Buyer Scheme to allow first home buyers to invest up to 40% of their superannuation, up to a maximum of $50,000, to help with the purchase of their first home. Given Australians over the age of 55 the ability to invest up to $300,000 per person of their superannuation fund outside their existing contribution caps from the proceeds of selling their primary residence. Double the asset test exemption for 2 years when pensioners downsize their family home, giving them more time to plan for their future. And help more first home buyers get over the deposit hurdle by raising the number of low deposit guarantees for first home buyers to $35,000 each financial year. The Coalition Government also committed to delivering increased property price caps for home guaranteed schemes to ensure Australians continue to have a choice when purchasing their home. They increased the supply, or will increase the supply, of new homes in regional areas by incentivising the purchase of new home builds, providing 10,000 low deposit guarantees each financial year for those moving to or within regional areas. This included non-first home buyers and permanent residents. Expanded home ownership opportunities for single-parent families by increasing the number of low deposit guarantees for single-parent families to buy a home with a deposit of as little as 2% to $5,000 each financial year, and supported greater investment into affordable housing with an additional $2 billion of low-cost financing for social and affordable dwellings, bringing total low-cost financing to $5.5 billion, supporting around 27,500 dwellings. Deputy Speaker, I wish to conclude and say that the Help to Buy Bill 2023 does not provide solutions that are in the national interest, and that's why we oppose the bill.